just in case you've forgotten how busy this week had been on the business and the market front, let's recap quickly for you. We started Monday and Tuesday with the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank with those decisions taken on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, we had the Debt Management Office for the March bond auction. Then, of course, the Bureau of Public Enterprises are talking about public procurement. Then, of course, on Thursday, we had the Institute of Directors business meeting, as well as the Association of Asian Houses of Nigeria. And on the same day, the president launching the PENCOM's micro pension program. Today, the Nigerian Stock Exchange, the financial literacy to wrap up the week, as well as the Association of Stockbroking Houses of Nigeria and our capital market meeting. So it's a very busy week. And part of that, as you heard, is the IOD talking about corporate governance. Nigeria is bringing the code of corporate governance back on the stream and getting everybody on board. And that was what Dr. Chris Pierce from the Global Governance Services from the UK, who was the lead speaker, talked about at the IOD meeting. Let's take a listen to what are the lessons to be learned from the world of corporate governance.
2016 was the very first apply and explain methodology. South Africa followed very quickly, and their King 4 report is an apply and explain. The Watts Code of Corporate Governance for private firms in the UK now follows an apply and explain, and your Nigerian code follows an apply and explain. This means that all of the principles have to be applied, and you've got to explain how you are applying them. And your company may be applying that particular code in a different way to another. Now, when I work in Mauritius, there is no reason why a state-owned enterprise, a charity or a listed company should apply the principle in exactly the same way. One size does not necessarily fit all, and the FRC here in Nigeria is not being as prescriptive as they might be, because they're saying, this is the principle, it's over to you to apply it, and then you've got to explain it in your annual report, on your website, and in reports to the FRC on a regular basis. So there is a change taking place in corporate governance, moving away from comply or explain through to apply and explain. And I really welcome the fact that Nigeria, the FRCN, has moved to an apply and explain methodology. And I'm one of the founders associated with this new methodology and some of the issues that are going to be associated with it. That's why I wanted to spend a bit of time on mindsets. So we're not talking, for the most part here, about comply or else, but there is still a reason for having law and a comply or else. We're not talking about comply or explain, we're not talking about apply or explain, we're talking about an apply and explain methodology. Sorry if that feels that I'm dancing on a pin, but this is quite an important evolution, and you need to understand it in terms of what the FRC are going to be doing to enforce and monitor the corporate governance regime. The principles and what I call the pillars of corporate governance tend to be worldwide 4 areas, and I tend to talk about 4 principles that I call RAFT. R stands for responsibility, second area is accountability, third area is fairness, and the fourth area is transparency. I I don't say one is more important than another, but you need to think in any case that you're looking at, which is going to be the most important. Now, if, for example, you're recruiting senior management and you don't do it in a responsible way, it doesn't matter how accountable you are at a later date. If you've recruited the wrong people with the wrong morals, with the wrong chemistry, then you have not behaved in a responsible way in the first place. And it doesn't matter how accountable you are, saying, I'm sorry, we've made a mistake, and I'm disclosing, and I'm being transparent about it. All of these are important. RAF, responsibility, accountability, fairness, and transparency. And the FRCN code clearly is focused upon all four principles like that. So the next thing I want to look at is the drivers of corporate governance. Why are we doing corporate governance? And I think the reason we're doing it is that firstly, there's a very strong business case for doing it. It will lead to improvements in effectiveness and efficiency within the organisation. It will lead to better stakeholder relationships. It will lead to improved disclosure and transparency. It will lead to better internal controls, and so on. But there are other reasons. The global financial crisis was a wake-up call to the world that said corporate governance was to blame in many cases for the global financial crisis. The governance of the banks, of the large global banks in New York, was not good and needed improvement. There have been corporate failures, there have been excesses in terms of very high salaries, again, particularly in America. There have been situations where the board members are getting 50, 100, 200% pay rises, and yet the workers are getting 0 or 2%. And there is a widening of income inequality and wealth inequality, and that is a governance issue. There are issues associated with globalization, privatization, and so on. We know it's a hot topic at the moment. And this is important, I think, that if you have got well-governed organisation, then you've got an effective company that knows what it's doing. You've got an effective board, you've got an effective management, you've got a clear direction that you're going, you've got a clear strategy. The consequences of bad governance are that, firstly, the board is what it's doing. It's going to make wrong decisions, inappropriate decisions, and so on. If you don't know what's going on, if you've got garbage coming in terms of your information system, you're going to have garbage going out in terms of your decisions that you're making. It could lead to the stock exchange delisting you or suspending you because your accounts and your annual reports are not truthful and require restatement of one sort or another. Your shareholders could have problems with you because they don't trust you. You're not giving them sufficient information as to how you are governing the organisation. There may be, as a result of that, difficulties in terms of access to capital and gaining funding. There may be, it's so bad that there are legal proceedings against you as an individual director. An example going on right now, the former CEO of Barclays is currently personally going through the courts for having misled the public as a whole as to the lending of £10 billion to Qatar, the Qatar government, and they in turn bought with that £10 billion shares in Barclays. It's a clear illegal activity if he is found guilty of making that decision. Barclays could lose their banking license as a result of that. The individual director could be, for the rest of his life, in jail. And that's the CEO, the former CEO, the former CFO, and many other individuals within Barclays. The case is ongoing at the moment. It happened in 2008. But we're catching up with directors and we're wanting them to explain what they've been doing and how they have been making decisions. Whoops. Okay, and I'd like to quote from the code. Your FRCN code states that the reason that they're wanting the code to be introduced is to institutionalize corporate governance, so that everything that you're doing within your organization, there is this corporate governance practice that is being recommended by the FRCN. It's also to promote corporate values, and so you're rightly recognizing culture, values, the moral compass, as some people describe it, of the organization is clear because of the code requiring it in a principal format. And as a result of that, honesty, integrity, improvement in relationships will take place.